there's a hookup. Wow, that's a good feeling fish right there. Actually had two going on at the same time. Both the bottom bouncers went at the same time. Didn't know which one to grab. Okay, see if I can get this out of my way here a little bit. Well, I'm Mark Romanack and you're watching Fishing 411. I kind of already gave it away a little bit. Bottom bouncer, whenever you hear that word, you're probably looking at walleye fishing. And indeed, we are looking at walleye fishing. Oh, what a nice fish this is. What a nice fish this is. When the drag starts peeling out on the walleye, you know you got a good one. Look at that puppy. Woo, baby. All right. Let's see how this works here. Always challenging to do this. In the scoop, there we go. That's a good start right there. That is a good start. Wow. Let's get this one out of the net. Whoa, 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 not a bad start, huh? About a 25-incher, 24, 25, good start. Like I said, my name is Mark Romanack. You're watching Fishing 411. Stick around, because we're gonna be fishing some live bait for walleye on Lake Erie. All right.
Offshore Tackle presents Fishing 411 with Mark Romanack.
Gobbled up that thing. Look at that, he's in the bag. Yes, it did.
Fishing 411 is brought to you by Offshore Tackle, the leader in trolling technology. Okuma, high performance. Vicious Fishing. Northwest Ontario Tourism, there's no place like this. Jay's Sporting Goods, get in gear. And by Yakima, home of the rooster tail.
Our Lake Erie adventure took place at a little town called Avon Point, and it's a very popular destination for people who are looking for walleyes, but in particular looking for big walleyes. From that point east, it's all big walleyes, and that's exactly what we found. We're fishing crawler harnesses, what most people, walleye guys, refer to as spinner rigs, and we got a couple different setups here, and they're pretty basic, pretty straightforward, the kinds of things you're going to see a lot on bodies of water like Lake Erie. I started with a bottom bouncer. It happens to be a 3-ounce tied right directly to my line, and then my harness on here, you can see it's relatively long. It's about, probably about 50 inches or so. This happens to be a hammer time spinner made by Yakima with 2 single hooks on it back here. Pretty good size hooks, number 2 hooks, because we're dealing with some good sized fish here. All I'm going to do is simply put it back, make sure the spinner is spinning properly, make sure the crawler is dangling back there the way I want it, and I'm just going to free spool that 3-ounce bottom bouncer. And I'm using the bait casting rod here. It's the most efficient tool for this job. And as soon as that bottom bouncer hits the bottom, boom, I can see the line stop spooling. So I'm just going to hold it for a second now, let the forward motion of the boat kind of pull everything tight. We're trolling with an electric motor. We're going about 1.5 miles an hour right now. Now that I can feel the bouncer is pulled up off bottom a little bit, I'm just going to free spool it a second time. Second time it hits the bottom, we're good to go. Put it in gear, and I'm just going to put it in this rod holder down here, and I want my rod holders level to the water for bottom bouncer fishing. Now all I have to do is monitor those tips and read those tips to determine when I've got a strike. Oh, look at this. Now that's a Lake Erie perch. Really not trying to target perch, but I'm never upset when I catch a big perch like this. This is a big one right here. Like I said, we're on Lake Erie. We're fishing out of a place called Avon Lake. If you don't know where that is, it's a suburb of Cleveland. In fact, we can see the Cleveland skyline in the background here. It's not very far from here at all. And that's the kind of perch people love to catch. I think we might get a few of these today, so I'm definitely going to throw that in a live well. I love yellow perch. You know, there's a wide variety of ways that you can catch fish on Lake Erie. In the springtime, like this was scheduled in early June, you're looking at a lot of spinner rigs. Worm harnesses are very popular there. We've caught fish two different ways there. We use bottom bouncers, right smack on the bottom. The other thing that we used is tadpole divers with spinner rigs behind them. We fished them on planer boards. So we had spinners on planer boards out to the side, and we also had lines straight out the back. That was fishing the bottom. Those were our bottom bouncers, and both produced well for us. There's another fish that we're going to be dealing with today. That bonus catch, that yellow perch, that's a good thing. This thing, a round goby, not so good. Gobies are an invasive species here in the Great Lakes, and ones like this, that's a pretty good sized one, are bait stealers, absolute bait stealers. So he's not going back in the water. We're going to prevent him from getting on our bait again. But that's an animal that we don't want here. They are a forage for some species. Walleyes will eat them, of course, smallmouth bass will eat them. But mostly what they are is a nuisance. If you're going to fish bait like what we're doing today, they're going to drive you insane. In fact, I know a lot of the captains here carry a 5-gallon bucket, and they just throw them in the 5-gallon bucket because they know they're going to be dealing with a lot of gobies if they fish near the bottom and they fish live bait.
Additional considerations provided by Evinrude Outboards and Starcraft Marine. Additional considerations provided by Ontario's Algoma Country.
The other rig that we're fishing today is another one of my favorites. It's called a Tadpole diver. It's made by Offshore Tackle. It gets its name because of the device, the way it looks, and you'll see here in a second what I'm talking about. And this is the actual diver itself, if I can get it in my hand here. And it does look a little bit like a tadpole. It's got a big old head and skinny tail. And essentially it rides in the water just about like that. And what it does is it just takes us to depth is all it does. It's just getting us down to depth and dragging our spinner down to where we want. Now again, on this one I've got another spinner tied on here. And caught me another white perch, not what I'm looking for, but we're gonna go through a lot of those today. And that's why we have the tattle flags on there, so we know when we're catching these, so we can clean our lines and put them back on there. The only thing different about this setup from the bottom bouncer setup is that the hook configuration is a little different. What I've done is I've taken that hammer time spinner, and instead of having just 2 single hooks on it, I've taken the back hook off and tied a treble hook on it. For open water fishing, this is not going to get anywhere near the bottom. I'm fishing this for suspended walleyes. I'd like a treble hook on the back just to increase my hookup ratio a little bit. Treble hook just does a little bit nicer job of hooking and holding on to these bigger walleyes. So the tadpole with a spinner is a great setup, and of course we're using offshore boards with tattle flags to get them out to the side so we cover a little more water. It's time to hitch up the offshore board here with the tattle flag attachment. All I'm doing is I'm putting my main line into the front release. In this instance I've got a snapper release on here called an OR18. I like this release because it works good for mono. I could also use it for braided line if I was using braided line. And then on the back of the board I have another release. This is the red one called the OR16. And what I'm going to do is put the line in there, and it has to go behind that little pin that's inside of it. And then all I need to do is pull a little slack line in here. And the reason I have to have this slack line in here is because this tattle flag functions as basically as a linkage system. And what's going on here is that when anything grabs the line or the bait and pulls on it, the flag goes down, lets us know that we've got a fish on. When you look at the back side of the board, you can see the flag attachment is hooked here with just a very simple spring, a linkage arm here that goes back to the release. So extremely simple to operate. You can change the spring tension just by raising the spring up or down. And right now, because I'm using a fairly heavy weight here in the tadpole, I've got it set for a heavy tension, relatively heavy tension. But as soon as the fish grabs that, boom, down it goes. It could be a fish we're looking for, a walleye, or it could be a non-target species that we're just trying to get reeled in quick, unhooked, and our line's back in the water. Now, when I let this out to the side, I'm just going to let it kind of slide its way out. When I'm board fishing like this with live bait, I don't need to put these boards way out to the side like I would with a spoon or a crankbait. I want to monitor them, I want to keep them in close, and I've got a limited number of lines that I can fish today anyway, so I'm only going to let this board out to the side about 40 or 50 feet maximum. That's good. Put her in the rod holder and let her do her work. Alrighty. The little tattle flag went down, but the board didn't go back, and that's a dead giveaway that we're not dealing with a walleye. Walleye is big enough that not only does the flag go down, white perch was on there, he just fell off, but not only does the walleye big enough that when he pulls on it, not only does he pull the flag down, but he pulls the board backwards in the water as well. No, what we had, unfortunately, was another white perch, and lucky for me, he fell off before I had to handle him. So I'll go ahead and reset this rascal. And anytime you're suspended fishing, you know, what we're doing with these tadpoles, we're suspending them up off bottom. You want to know what your lead length is, because that's how you're going to control the depth of them. In a little bit, I'll show you the dive curve so you can see exactly how deep these things dive. But right now, what I'm doing is I'm just monitoring the lead lengths, and right now I'm about 75 feet back. So if I catch a fish at that lead length, it's going to be pretty easy for me to duplicate again. So, a lot of work. When you're fishing live bait at Lake Erie, you're going to be setting lines constantly. Absolutely constantly. There's no way around it. Between the sheephead, the gobies, the white perch, the yellow perch, and the walleyes, you're going to be one busy muchacho. Whoa, that's a good fish right there. That one is not a goby or a white perch. This is a good fish here. We've been struggling a little bit because the white perch have been crazy here, and you're asking, why in the world are you fishing live bait in Lake Erie this time of year? Well, it's the week after Father's Day. Most of the time the fish are suspended at this time of year, and that is true. But we're going through a couple of unique situations here right now. We just had 3 days of northeast wind, whipped the lake up, nasty cold front. That tends to push fish to the bottom, and that's what we're dealing with here. Whoa! Also, it's right in the middle of the mayfly hatch. And if you've ever fished walleyes during mayfly hatch, you know they get tough. They get tough. And there's so much available food in the water for them. And this fish is just thumping. Oh man, this is a good one. And so to combat against the mayflies and the cold fronts, we slowed down with the live bait and went to the bottom. And we're just toughing it out here with all the less desirable fish. And this one is a desirable one though. Can't wait to lay eyes on this one. This is a pig. Oh, look at this fish. This is a walleye anybody would dream to catch. Look at that one. What a gorgeous, gorgeous fish. Okay, let's see if I can somehow manage to get this toad in the net. There we go. There we go. I believe, if it's possible, that's actually a much bigger fish than the first one. And that's what you're dealing with in Lake Erie, is you're dealing with these bigger fish. And let me get that spinner out of the mouth so I can pick her up here. You're dealing with these nice, solid, thick fish like this. Not super long, but just thick through the shoulders. And catching a fish like that in a light action bottom bouncer rod, that's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. Come down to Lake Erie, get yourself some of these toads. Man, in the box with this girl.
Fishing 411 is brought to you in part by Precision Trolling Data, the Troller's Bible, now available in an app. Mark Romanack's Fishing 411 is brought to you in part by O.J. Herman Company.
You know, one of the biggest things that happens on Lake Erie is whether you can fish or not. I mean, we were there 2 days waiting for it to lay down enough to actually get out and fish. And it's not whether you can catch fish, it's whether you can get out is the big issue with Lake Erie. And when the wind blows, that lake just gets ugly. And we experienced some pretty rough water, but then eventually it lays down, and then the fishing is usually phenomenal. Let's talk a little bit about bottom bouncers. They come in a wide variety of sizes, from typically as small as a ½ ounce all the way up to as heavy as I've seen them as heavy as 4 ounces. And so the question becomes, how do you know what size bottom bouncer is appropriate for the job? Well, the term bottom bouncer in general is a little bit misleading, because actually I'm not trying to set these things to maintain contact with the bottom. I want them just to tick the bottom occasionally and stay in proximity to the bottom. That stated, you don't need as many sizes of bottom bouncers as you might imagine. I only carry 3 sizes in my boat. I carry 1 ounce, 2 ounce, and 3 ounce generally. I don't fish anything beyond that. The 1 ounce I'll fish down to about 10 to 15 feet deep. The 2 ounce I use in everything up to about 25 to approaching 30 feet deep. And then anything deeper than 30, I'm going to run the 3 ounce bouncer. And those 3 sizes cover me very nicely. It's more important to set the bouncer properly than it is to carry a whole bunch of different size bouncers. I've never seen a need for like an 1.5 ounces or a 2.5 ounces or a ½ ounce. I've never seen needs for those in-between sizes of bouncers. I think you can get the job done nice with a 1, a 2, and a 3 ounce bouncer. This is not finesse fishing. This is get close to the bottom and stay there. There's one. On the tattle flag in the board. I was just resetting that line that got bit. Let me get this off right here. You know, most of our bites have been coming on the bottom bouncers, in all honesty, today. After a cold front, that's not surprising, but it's never a bad idea to fish some lines up in the water column suspended, just to keep them honest and make sure that if there are any upfish there, that you can target them. As the weather progresses to get nicer, I mean, it was nice and flat and calm today, by tomorrow I'd expect most of these fish to be suspended again, in all honesty. What a toad. What a nice bonus fish. What a nice bonus. Woo, baby. Look at him go. There we go. He's in the bucket. Good fish. Now that's a pretty nice Lake Erie walleye right there. One of the things to keep in mind is that when you're fishing suspended walleye with harnesses, the treble hook is a better ratio for hooked up fish to landed fish. When you fish bottom bouncers and you're fishing on the bottom, I prefer the single hook option. And the primary reason I don't want to fish treble hooks on the bottom is zebra mussels. All of Lake Erie is covered with zebra mussels. If you fish treble hooks near the bottom, you're going to hang up on zebra mussels more commonly. So for suspended fish like this, a treble hook rig is a better way to go. On the bottom, the single hooks are going to serve you much better. That's a nice fish. I love it. 29.5 inches. Well, that's a toad. That is a toad. We're going to get her right back in the water. She's way too big to eat.
Additional considerations provided by Lowrance Electronics. Find, navigate, dominate. Additional considerations provided by Mustang Survival. We save lives for a living. And Bait Rigs Tackle.
We have not, I'm going to jinx myself right now, because we have not caught any small fish today. Normally, after a cold front, you would expect to catch smaller fish. That's just normal. You know, the big fish become a little tougher to get. But today, literally every fish has been a toad. And I can tell you already that this one's going to be a big one just by the way it's fighting. So far, our biggest is 29.5. This time of year, that's between 9 and 10 pounds. That's an awful big walleye. And this one's probably not that big, but it's clearly going to be a good fish. Clearly going to be a good fish. And it's been a struggle just to keep my lines in the water here. Okay, let me see here. Oh. Probably our smallest fish of the morning. And he's still pushing that 5-pound range. All right, let's see if we can get him in the bucket here. Oop. Up to Papa. Yeah, a little tricky on the net job, but we got her. A little tricky. And let me get him right out of there and show you what, these are new spinners. A lot of people tie their own spinners. These are hammer time spinners made by Yakima, same people that own Hildebrandt. If you're familiar with Hildebrandt, then you know that Hildebrandt's world famous for their blades and their finishes. And these are designed especially for walleye fishing. And that's the blade that got it done right there. Nice fish. And one of the things that most people don't completely understand about Lake Erie is that those fish are transient. They're always on the move. The western basin is where these fish spawn. After they spawn in the western basin, they gravitate eastward to the deeper waters of Lake Erie. So they go through the central and eventually into the eastern basin. The fish that we were catching are transient fish. They're done spawning and they're on their way east where they're going to spend the summer in the eastern basin. That's a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing. It's nice to have enough rod to do this too. I wouldn't want to be fighting this big old fish right now with a 6-foot spinning rod. There he is, big fish. Very big fish. Look at that. It's in the net. That's a big fish right there. Oh, hard to even lift it. It's so big. Oh, I'm gonna want to put that one on the board just to see, but that one's right up there. Right up there. Lake Erie walleye at its finest. What a toad. On a bottom bouncer in 38 feet of water. Avon Lake, Lake Erie. Get yourself some of these fish. You get down here Father's Day through the end of June. These fish are all traveling through here. They spawn in the western basin. They're on their way to the eastern basin where they spend the summer. And they travel through here in mid to late June. It's a good place to be. Wow. Hey, I'm Mark Romanack. You've been watching Fishing 411. I hope you learned a thing or two today about spinner fishing for walleyes. If you get a chance to get down to Lake Erie, give this a try. You'll be glad you did.
Closed captioning is provided by Cisco Fishing Systems. Innovation makes us #1. Quality keeps us there. Fishing 411 has been brought to you by Offshore Tackle, Okuma, Vicious Fishing, Northwest Ontario Tourism, Yakima Bait, and Jay's Sporting Goods.
We've been working steady here to keep off the less than desirable fish. That's all part of the game when you fish crawlers. They're not willing to work at it. Crawlers are probably not the bait of choice here on Lake Erie. And yeah, once again, it just cleans it right down to